Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I've got another reel in a bag, or in this case bags, project. This one was sent in by a viewer, Max. Max took the reel apart, started cleaning it up, doing some various things. I think probably trying to replace the drag washers, and I guess it got beyond him, and that's okay. I'm going to try and help him out. So we'll show you the pieces and parts to make up a Penn. This one's the Model 320 GTI, and I see old in the bag, so we must have replaced the new washers. I'll show you how to do it, what the process is, and how to reassemble it, so next time Max changes his drag washers out, I'll know how to put them back together again. So I have a good mental inventory of the fishing reel parts for a reel like this. I kind of know what I should expect. If you don't have that idea, or in this case if it got beyond you, then what you want to do is you want to go pull the schematic diagram for it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to kind of play this one by memory, but if you don't know the setup and where the pieces and parts go, then I encourage you to go to mysticparts.com. They're a regional Penn parts reseller, and you can find the schematic for the reel on that. Okay, the reel pieces look like they're pretty clean. If they're not, we're going to stop and clean them. But right now, let's get started, and the frame is a good place to start. There is a bearing in the back, and we want to make sure that that bearing gets oiled. I oil bearings. I'm using Reel X, which is an aftermarket product. It's a synthetic fishing reel oil, and I come to have confidence in that, so I'm going to do that. The plastic idler gear does not need any kind of lubrication. It is a petroleum product, and by its nature it can forego the lube. While we have the frame open, I'm going to move the line guide over to one side. I'm going to remove the cap, and we're just going to service the pawl underneath. There's no sense just putting the reel back together. We might as well just take care. Your pawl is in the slot here. Just a drop of oil is fine. It'll work its way down. We can come back and put the cap on. And then what I like to do is I like to use oil on the worm drive as opposed to grease. I think grease tends to trap dirt, so I don't encourage that, but that doesn't mean that you can't put grease on it. You can. Okay, next up would be a spool for the assembly, which I'm just going to check as we go along here. The spool's got braid on it. It's been cleaned. Both sides are good. You can put a little bit of grease onto the part here that's going to drive the idler gear. Again, there's two plastic parts. It's not needed, but you can do it. Then my little odds of the moment here, that braid typically gets trapped in here. So just watch that end of the tag line, so that it doesn't get caught behind the spool. And then that gets that seated, and then you can just kind of wind, making sure that your level wind guide is working and that your line is not chopped. That's the frame side. So they got the business side of this reel done. So we have our gear side. We have an eccentric that's come off, or is taken off. I'm going to put the side plate screws for now into the tray there. Let's go ahead and reset that spring then. To reset the spring, you have to take the lever and the screw out. You want to pull the eccentric out. The eccentric has a hole in it where this piece, the tag end that's at a 90 degree, goes into. And then that short end goes in the notch here. We saw it flopping around before, but it goes into the notch. And then you reseat that back into the hole like that. And what we have now is this is too far extended. This needs to circle up. Sometimes you can do it by hand. Most of the time you can't. So grab this. I reverse the lever so that I have the arm out. I'm catching the lip on that, and I'm turning it about halfway until it gets to the point where I can sit the metal ring on, reseat the arm with the proper orientation of the stud. You have to be careful because you can push this out and you have to start all over again. And then we'll put it back here. And now you have a lever that's working properly. The only thing I don't like about this is that should come over more. So I'm just going to get that stuck here again. I'm going to bend that lever back in. There should just be a little bit of a taper on that, so I'm going to put that into a vise, which is off camera here. Just a little bit of hand strength to restore that bending. And when we put this back on, you'll notice that that trip is much more centered over the side ring than it was previously. And that's the way it kind of came from the factory. You'll see we're close now in terms of it being parallel to it, and it's kind of running along the metal side plate, which is the way it should be done. Okay, inside then, since we just kind of fixed that little piece there, we can put a little bit of grease on that. And now we're going for the internal bridge parts. So it looks like he's replaced and reassembled the bridge here. We'll just go ahead and check that. But for the most part, we're okay. This cap washer is upside down. But it looks like the drag washers have been replaced. This cap washer goes on the downside there. We need grease on the main gear. Let's go ahead and get that on there. We have another real seat screw there. Our side plate screw. These are sturdy reels. These are very, very well made, over-engineered for the most part for the fish that they're intended to catch. And they will last a long time if properly serviced. We have a bearing in here, so I'm going to hit both sides of that bearing with some oil just to let it soak in. And otherwise, Max did a good job there in terms of setting that drag stack up. Okay, in order to complete that then, I'm going to go grab the yoke assembly, which is in this one. We have a yoke, the yoke springs, we have the dog, the pinion gear, and the free spool release jack. Alright, so we're in pretty good shape with that. Here's how that all comes together. You take the two springs and you nest them into those little cavities on both sides. These parts are clean, but they do need the greasing, so we're going to go ahead and grease the shoulders of the yoke. Again, the gears are clean, but they need the grease, so let's get grease onto the pinion gear. That can sit in here now. The two holes from the yoke center over the springs, you push down, then You take your jack. There's a wide hole and a narrow hole, so start by getting the wide hole in, and that's your assembly for your jack and your yoke. Alright, we have a dog with a spring, and we have the main gear assembly, which goes in next. There are 4 screws. What we want to do is we want to take a fully threaded screw. There's 2 different types of screws. There's a fully threaded and there's a partially threaded. The partially threaded screws, the springs ride on those, and so they belong up top. We want to take a fully threaded screw and get that seated there. Put our main gear in now, pushing down on the yoke and assembly, and turning this assembly about 90 degrees. And take our anti-reverse dog. We're not going to attach the spring yet. Just kind of let the spring hang out there, and then rotate the assembly the rest of the way. You may need to center the spool gear like I just did there. You'll have a stud on this side and a stud on that side to hold the bridge, and that screw for the anti-reverse dog will be lined up with the hole. So start, just put a couple of turns on that. Don't turn them all until you get them all seated. Here's the fully threaded screw for the other side that goes below. I don't tighten that one yet. There's a partially threaded screw which goes up top for the... There you go. Got that one caught. Should be able to do the same on the other side now. And if you get the case where this is misaligned a little bit, use a little center. It's the shoulder of the yoke, that hole that you're going through, that may just be pressing down a little bit too much and preventing it from meeting up in the side plate. We got it now. Now we can tighten down the one below. And then there's just 1 screw remaining. And if you have any questions, if you don't feel it aligning properly, just look around the back. That'll tell you if it's working or not. Okay, Okay, then we just want to attach the spring to the little stud here, and I use my pick for that. Just going to grab the loop. These gloves make it a little tougher to do it, but there we go. You can see the anti-reverse working there. Come up top then, we're going to put our gear sleeve on. Put our star adjuster on. I can put the handle on yet. I just want to tighten down the drag, make sure that we're good in terms of getting this thing turning right. There we go. So we've successfully installed it. We have our anti-reverse dog working. We've oiled our bearing. The one thing we didn't get was a little bit of grease onto the shoulders of the jack. So let's go ahead and put that in where it's going to slide in under the bridge. And that essentially is how to reinstall the front side plate. Next up then would be putting it onto the reel. And there's some slots there. You can see those slots coming in. Pretty straightforward in terms of how to close the case up. Before you even put any screws in, make sure that the seams are tight and you can give it a spin. Sounds like it's talking to me the way it should be. And we want to put our 4 screws in then. Now, these are all the same. Now, Max gave me these. I didn't have a chance to take them out, but I typically will look as I take screws out of a side plate just to make sure they are all the same. And if not, if one's small somewhere, shorter, I would note that location. That's not uncommon on these reels. It's fairly common at all, completely in bait casters and the like, but in the Penn you'll have small screws on a traditional crossbar kind of one. This is a graphite case. Doesn't have the crossbars, but then we'll use shorter screws on the real seats. And you need to pay attention. In this case, these screws are all the same. Alrighty then, so we have one more screw to put on, one handle and one handle screw and a tie down. And this wheel should be out and going fishing again. With a little side trip to New Jersey to get it back together. Nice reel overall. This one's going to last a long time to come. The internal components are good. The exterior's clean. There's nothing wrong with this reel from what I can see. Alright, handle goes on then. A handle screw and a tie down. So this is a good case where the reel in bags was sent in complete. A lot of times that doesn't happen. Handle screw goes on. You need to use a wrench to tighten this down to where you can have one of these little cavities or offsets line up with that hole. So you can get the hold down screw in there. Oops. Those of you that watch me know this is always the fun time. So while I'm doing this, let me thank our first responders, our essential personnel, our healthcare workers, law enforcement, fire, and EMT, and all of those that are working on our behalf during this pandemic to try and keep us safe and well and out of harm's way, and trying to heal us should we contract this terrible virus. So if you know anybody, please thank them for me on our behalf, and hopefully they'll have the time in the near future to go out and do some fishing. So there we go. That's the Penn 320 GTI. Yeah, this is USA. So this is GTI or GT1. GT2 would be the ones made in China in 2005. So this one was made probably between 2000 and 2005. Alrighty, that's the reel. That's all back together again. Max, it's coming back out at you. And for those of you that have this reel, you now know how to service it. For those of you that are thinking about it, you saw kind of how it's made up inside. It's a beautiful reel internally. And this one's ready to go fishing. So five little bags later, we're good. So if you like this video, please indicate that. If you want to see more of these types of videos, please subscribe. If you have a reel that needs service, well, contact me through the email on the business card that follows, and I'll be happy to provide you that service information. And finally, if you have any questions on a fishing reel repair, whether it's on this particular reel or just one that you happen to be working on and maybe you got stuck, well, shoot me a note in the comment section as well, and I'll try to help you with that. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.